tonight's presentation, and sorry for the technical difficulties. This was the plan in case we had problems that we kept it small so we would be able to come back to our office and start again here. So thank you for bearing with us on that. The problem was we did not have a password, even though we told them we needed internet over there. They did not. They gave us the whole building. So welcome to everyone tonight. So tonight's presentation really, it's called I'm Still Here. And this is part of our National Office Awareness Month. And really, we even though it's Awareness Month, we do it throughout the whole year. So I'm Still Here is to hear people living with dementia and their care partners speak about how to keep people living well with dementia. So I have some of our families here going to share their story with you. I'm only going to introduce them by name simply because they are going to share their story with you. So I would like everyone to meet Claude and Carrie Namu.
Chamberlain. Holy cow, where'd that come from? I made up a name, yeah. Okay, I got it. Where is this Lamoureux guy? Hi, my name is Carrie Chamberlain, and I have dementia, or whatever. I don't know what. Early onset. I was diagnosed with how long ago?
Last summer with Alzheimer's.
Mm-hmm, with Alzheimer's. And I have two daughters. And can't hear? Can't hear? Yeah. Okay. Good. Yeah.
People at my age are deaf.
This is my husband, Claude, and I have early onset Alzheimer's, and I have trouble with my speaking, and I can't remember things terribly well. But I have my family who take care of me, and if I do stupid things at stupid times and all the rest of that. And, yeah.
Okay, so Carrie was diagnosed with dementia a little over a year ago. Just a little bit of history about her diagnosis. Last summer, she was diagnosed with early onset Alzheimer's, and she was. And the way we found out is she was put on medical leave from work 3 years ago. So it took just about 2 years before they found out she had dementia, and a little longer until they found out that she had Alzheimer's. Carrie still does a lot of things. Still plays Romoli once a month. They have to coax her along a little bit, but she still does that. She still does the house cleaning. She makes the bed at home, because I can't make it as good as her. There's still things that we do. We have a lake lot, and we go there in the summer a lot, not in the wintertime, but in the summer. And we have fires and whatnot. We have people over. We still enjoy having a lot of people over to our place during Christmas. I come from a very big family, so we're still doing things that we were doing before she had Alzheimer's. It's not as if we're stopping any of our activities. Carrie just went to Las Vegas just before Christmas. So she spent 4 days there. She came back Christmas Eve.
Broke.
So, there's still a lot of things that we do. There's still a lot of things that we do together. And she's still around. Like she's still here. It's not as if she's gone anywhere.
We're here because of Mary, dementia, okay? But I read, I can't remember, the difference between dementia and Alzheimer's is because I started out dementia diagnosed with Alzheimer's.
Yeah, and actually, if I could ask everyone if we could keep our questions till the end, would that be all right, sir?
Well, that would be, listening to the information here, I immediately
It's a great question. I will say, I know from working with people who live with dementia, sometimes they just need to get their stuff out, and then we can absolutely talk and ask those questions. So I will hold that question in my, obviously not trap mind, because I made up a new name, but I will absolutely introduce and answer that. So Claude and Carrie, was there anything else you wanted to add there?
Just that Carrie was a nurse, so of course having dementia or the medical leave, it says that was it was hard on her to leave her job. I mean, she loved what she was doing, and that was hard. And for the first little while, it was tough on all of us because we had to deal with somebody who loved their job, and all of a sudden she can't work anymore.
Perfect, great. Well, thank you so much. I'm now going to introduce you to Constance and Larry.
I presume you're editing. So, yeah. So here we are. I'm going to smooth this a bit.
You bet, yes.
This way. I don't know which way.
Don't worry about looking there.
Okay, I'm just trying to. All right.
Got my glasses?
No, that's fine. So, Larry. Yeah. Okay. So, Larry, could you introduce yourself? You're still here. Here you are, a handsome Cree man, and a award-winning author. You're still here, and you're 82. What's your perspective on life these days?
I think I'm still here. I still would like to write another award-winning novel about a way of life that I changed. And there was no toys to play with, and you made large pail covers, cans, made a one-wheel fishing stick. That was our toy. If it wasn't a slingshot, then no toys.
Well, I hope that you will be able to write that. Larry's actually working on that would be his 10th book. His first book was As Long as the Rivers Flow, and it's about his childhood in northern Alberta. And his most recent book is called Schools with the Words and Images of Survivors. So anybody who is looking out there, took Larry many years of research, and he went to residential school. So for a person who went to residential school, Larry, you had the dream of writing your true culture. And so about 5 years ago, Larry had cancer, and after he took the radiation treatments, then about a year after that, he noticed some memory issues. And so basically, it's been 4 years. You're committed to having quality of life, right? And so some of the things that we do, there's an upside to every downside, and the upside is that we probably wouldn't have given up on some of the activities that we did, like visiting schools, which was very exhausting and didn't really make you rich, but we visited about 1,600 schools, and we loved talking to students. And, having some memory issues, like we decided, okay, let's finally take a break, let's retire. But we haven't retired entirely, because here we are. And we did a seniors group last week, and we went to a library to sell books at an author's night the week before. And so every week there's some activity, and that's what keeps us going. With food.
Where's the food?
So yeah, maybe sometimes there's freebies. So what do you like to do the most, Larry? You like to walk?
I do a lot of walking. That's my favorite pastime, is walking through the forest and hear the birds. My favorite places, of course.
So, Larry, it is a beautiful place, and spring is coming, and there'll be lovely walks ahead of us. As well, Larry, we love being with our friends, and we love we really want to thank the Alzheimer's Society of Alberta because, you guys have really helped us so much. As well, there's the creativity, there's the spirituality, mental challenges. We like to go to hear people talk about research. We like to there's a lot of free music concerts. So every day we try to do something. That's our goal. We never let a day go by without accomplishing something. So guys, remember I told you? Remember I said to the group, like, when we've gone on too long, give us a signal. So I'm giving us a signal. Larry, is there anything else that you'd like to say, some final words to our friends here?
I think this is my first book, and it's the award-winning book. And when you're questioned about writing, this is a truthful book. And when you're questioned about content of the book, it doesn't make you feel good. It makes you feel like you've done something wrong when you know you didn't do anything wrong. I just wrote a book about the truth about resident school and what we as children went through. And a lot of what we went through in Gruard Residential School was most of the children who went to Gruard were not allowed to speak their first language, was Cree. So a lot of the children that went to residential school lost their speaking Cree.
So just to finish up, I want to point out that Larry won a SAGE Award last year here in Edmonton in the education category, which was a true honor. So with that, I think we'll close and listen to the other speakers. Thank you very much.
Perfect. Thank you, Larry and Constance. Our next speaker is Chris Nelson, and Chris is actually going to read a speech that she does in our education series. So Chris speaks at our Seeds of, and Chris will now share her story with you.
Hello, my name is Chris Nelson, and I've been asked to share my experience with Alzheimer's disease and related dementias. I was 54 when my mother was diagnosed with Alzheimer's disease. She was 78. In 1997, when my father passed away suddenly from cancer, Mom moved into our home. My husband, Carl, and I lived on an acreage just north of Stony Plain, Alberta. I worked in Edmonton as a social worker, and Carl worked out of town in Fort McMurray and only came home on weekends. Soon after Mom arrived, I noticed she had difficulty making decisions, cooking, or being spontaneous. She was afraid to be alone. This was a concern as she was alone while I was at work and not able to cook for herself. I thought my dad had just really spoiled her. As time went on, I knew Mom could not be by herself, so I left work and became her full-time caregiver. This was a very stressful job and a big change for me. After my mom fell and broke her leg, we decided to move her to a lodge where there would be more assistance. Mom lived in the lodge for a year or so, but eventually, as her illness progressed, she had to be moved into long-term care. I was still living in Stony Plain, and Mom was placed in a facility in St. Albert. I made the journey there at least 5 to 6 times per week. The way we communicated and had fun changed as her health deteriorated. Mom could no longer communicate her thoughts and feelings. We no longer had discussions. Instead, we played ball, painted, listened to music, and danced. I will always remember the smile on her face when we danced. My mother passed away peacefully May 15, 2007, with family by her side. Some people ask what was the hardest part for me. The hardest part was that I was diagnosed with dementia before my mother was diagnosed with Alzheimer's disease. I had dementia before my mother. I was diagnosed when I was 54 years old and could no longer work. This is my story. In 1983, I started work at the Edmonton John Howard Society as a social worker. By the time I left 17 years later, I was a parole officer supervising federal inmates who had been released into the community. Prior to me leaving, I noticed my memory was poor, and it was getting harder and harder to do a good job at work. I was tired constantly and would have to sleep the whole weekend in order to be productive at work. My forgetfulness was starting to affect things at home and at work. Forgetting my keys, papers, notes, etc. became the norm. Everyone at work would jokingly make comments about me forgetting things, and I would laugh with them, but really I was embarrassed and often felt like the class clown. My fatigue was becoming a real concern between working and looking after Mom. I realized I needed to make a change in my life. I thought the pressure of working in correction was too much, so I made a difficult choice and quit my job of 17 years. Leaving was extremely difficult, but something I knew would benefit my health. I then began teaching abused women's groups for an agency that helped others get back into the workforce. A year later, I was exhausted all the time. Sometimes after group, I would have to sit for an hour before driving home. My groups went well, but again, my memory was a real concern. Report writing became difficult. Friday was the day to write clients' assessments. However, if I waited until then, I could no longer remember important details, so instead I took work home at night while I could still remember the facts. The doctors once again thought it was stress and put me on a 4-day work week. When things did not improve, I went on stress leave. While on stress leave, I was diagnosed with dementia, a sister to Alzheimer's disease. This was a real shock, but on the other hand, a relief, as finally I had an answer. I no longer felt stupid or old, and there was a logical reason why I was having trouble remembering names or recalling and learning new information. The day I had to tell my supervisor and begin long-term disability was extremely hard. It was very hard, as I knew that once I told others about my illness, I would no longer be employable. I remember that day stopping at my daughter's work because I was crying so hard, and she drove me to work. And I cried all the way because I knew I loved my job and I knew I wouldn't be able to work there anymore. At first, I was very depressed after being ill and being off work. I was not ready financially or emotionally for retirement. All my friends worked. I felt scared, I felt sad, and I felt angry. Finally, I decided in order to get through this, I must change my thoughts. I decided that I would no longer view myself as being disabled, but as retired. At that time, my thought was, if I cannot control my mental health, I want to control my physical health. So I began working out at the gym regularly and line dancing Friday with the seniors. I believe this is what has kept me positive and my dementia in check. When I go line dancing, if I went out tonight and someone said, "Can you do this dance?" I'd say, "No." What song is this? I wouldn't know. But the minute the music starts and I see someone doing it, I can do it perfect. It's funny. I also decided at that time that I needed some help and direction, so I contacted the Alzheimer's Society. I had a chance to speak to Arlene at the Society, and she provided me with support and written material for me to read. A couple of years later, I was called by Arlene at the Alzheimer's Society, and she told me that they had an early stage support group that I could attend, and I started attending monthly meetings. I not only attend a support group for people with early dementia, I now co-facilitate my group, which makes me feel like I am still making a difference. We meet here in this room once a month. This is a safe environment to express feelings of happiness, fear, and anger, and a place to be open and honest with one another. It is also a place where we can come to terms with the fact that we do have an illness. I was also not aware of how much this disease has affected others in my family. I remember when first diagnosed and when my granddaughter was younger, I went to her classroom. The teacher asked her to introduce me to the class. She said, "This is my nanny. She has a disease where someday she won't know me, but I am happy she is here today and that she knows me." This brought me and the teacher to tears because I didn't know how this was affecting her. A few years ago, while shopping with my daughter and grandson at Costco, I became quite confused and started yelling for my daughter. However, I was yelling, "Mommy, Mommy, Mommy," over and over. When my grandson, who was 7 at the time, came up to me, grabbed my hand and said, "It's okay, Nanny, I'm here." Later in the checkout, he came up to me and quietly said, "It's okay, Nanny, if you do, but please try not to embarrass me as my friend from basketball is here." I was so proud of him and so proud that he was so polite and had taken me aside and whispered this to me. Plus sad at the time for his concern about me and his friend. Many people still look at me and think you look normal, whatever normal is, and you look okay. And they are right. I do look normal, and I am okay. However, what they don't see is that I've lost my independence. I can't drive. I need help shopping, cooking, and making decisions. Clutter and choices overwhelm me. I have big trouble, especially now at family functions, because the noise is too much. And I might say things that I don't want to say or don't mean to say. When more than one person is speaking at the same time, I can become very confused. And fatigue is also a major concern for me. I can only manage one task at a time without becoming confused, tired, or mixing up words. I have many losses, but they are not easy to see from an outsider's point of view. However, I still try to have some of the life that many of you have. I am a wife, a mother, a grandma, and now a great-grandma, a community member, a volunteer, and a gym member. And you know what? I'm still here. Thank you.
Thanks so much, and I'd really like to thank Constance, Larry, Carrie, Claude, and Chris for these wonderful talks. Before we take questions, we are going to bring Ashley in from the Alzheimer's Society, and Ashley's going to share a little bit of information as the disease progresses, how we still keep people still here with them. So I'm going to turn it over to Ashley. When Ashley is done, then we will take questions from the floor.
I'm just going to sneak in nice and close to you. Sure. Yeah, so my name is Ashley. My background is in recreation therapy. So Arlene just wanted me to have a quick chat about how to ensure that our family member is still here as the disease progresses. So one of the major things that we here at the Alzheimer's Society want to always ensure that families ensure that those activities that they're doing are still meaningful. So what does meaningful mean necessarily? Well, it can mean a variety of different things, but really meaningful in the sense that it's still relevant. So something that is of interest to our family member, our friend, whoever it is in our community. So that might look, it might look like it in a variety of different ways. So for example, we always hear adult daughters say, my mom can't cook or bake anymore. True, maybe mom can't make a full meal herself or bake a whole cake to herself, but how can she still contribute to that activity? Maybe she can read a recipe. Maybe she can help gather the ingredients. Maybe she can mix it. Maybe she can even taste test and tell you, you didn't put enough salt in there, right? So there are still ways that we can contribute, or sorry, our family member contribute to the activity and make that activity really meaningful to them, because it is important that we still provide them that independence. Give them that opportunity to contribute to that relationship and that community that they're still in. Yeah, so questions?
Perfect. Good. So we are going to take questions, and please feel free. Who I really want you to ask questions to are our lovely panel of speakers. But we did have a gentleman here who asked the question when Claude and Carrie were sharing their story about what's the difference. I heard the word dementia and I heard the word Alzheimer's. So again, just kind of to quickly break that down, is the umbrella term is dementia, and there are different types of dementia. Alzheimer's disease is the most common type of dementia. And then there are other types of dementia. So if someone's diagnosed with Alzheimer's, that's a dementia. If they're diagnosed with a vascular type of disease, that's dementia. So we always literally think of an umbrella. The way I like to explain it is in a little bit more layman's terms. If a whole bunch of us in here had a cold, you probably wouldn't want to be in the same room with us. But if I could say I have a cold, and Chris could say she has a cold, and Claude could say he has a cold, and Carrie could say she has a cold. So it sounds like we all have the same type. But if anyone just asked us one question, and that question would be, well, what are you feeling? If I said, oh, the pressure in my head, I would have a head cold. If Chris was sitting here coughing and coughing, we'd say she has a chest cold. And if Claude might say, I had a head cold and now it's dropped into my chest, and poor Carrie's going to say, I want to stay away from them, but I'm not feeling well either, but I don't have any of those. So I'm going to call Carrie's cold the other type. So even though there's cold is the umbrella term, there are different types of colds. And then the signs and symptoms with a cold, usually in the next 3 or 4 days, all of our signs and symptoms will look alike. We'll all have that runny nose and watery eyes and just not feeling great. So really take the word dementia and put it where the word cold is. And there are different types of dementia. Alzheimer's disease is simply a type. So my guess is, and we know this from people with early onset dementia, is it takes a while to get diagnosed when you're younger. So they try to look at a whole bunch of different things. So my guess, Carrie, is what they probably said is we know you have a dementia. We're just not sure what kind. And then it took a while before then they decided to say, okay, we feel comfortable calling it Alzheimer's disease. So that's really the difference with those words. So does anybody have any questions for our panel? I think they would love to answer your questions.
I'd like to make a comment. That,
sure.
Like, what I found is really good is the more information that I've had, the more reading about it, the more talking to people, the more talking with our friends here, because many we've met before, that's really helpful. And also my mother did have Alzheimer's. Larry was a phenomenal help. We used to go there to Ontario, take care of her for 6 weeks. We went to the Alzheimer's support circles in Ontario over the period of about 8 years. So we knew a lot about memory issues from my mother's experience. So I really, the more you know, the easier it is. And the other thing about it is, I think I've become a better person because I've learned like what true love is. It's you need to be patient. And Larry, listen, it's not just a one-way street, is it?
Yeah. It's never going to get better. There's nothing that I could do to physically help or make the pain go away. So absolutely, when you're got absolutely nothing you can do to help the person who's affected with the horrible disease, it's not very fun to have someone you love. Something of that sort of thing. It becomes harder as the person you love very much, and she's not the person that you really love, but it's something else has taken over and made her what she is. So and it's hard. It's hard to take, no matter how often you see. My grandmother was like that. It was And she was a great hunter. She was about 90 when she passed on, but it was her teaching that I got all my traditional learning from my grandmother and oldies, and these are gone now. So real feeling of sadness when your grandmother is not the grandmother that you grew up with. It becomes hard for you to take the loss of your grandmother.
So Larry and I, just to finish up, we always say to each other, these are the good old days. You know, not like, it wasn't like 5 years ago that was the good old days. Today is the good old days. Mm-hmm. That's what we always say to each other every day. You know, these are the good old days, and life is good, and we have everything, and, you know, isn't our condo nice? And, you know, we're always trying to look for, we can go for a walk still. The weather's good, there's no snow. We're always looking for the positives, and I think just, you know, Larry's been very appreciative of me, like, which means a lot, like really loving and appreciative. So, you know, you got to find what it is in your own relationships. That's ours, but other people have different, you know, relationships, right?
I was really sad when I lost I was 30 years nursing. And, oh, thanks. And I was sent down to the head nurse's office because I was not doing my job terribly well. It wasn't anything that I would kill anybody with, but it's I was just looking at papers and stuff like that at the time. So, but it was terrible. I had to phone him. I was crying on the phone, and they're telling me to go home, and sometimes I don't even remember my kids' names. I don't know any of that stuff. I'll say you. But I have been blessed with wonderful, wonderful friends. Absolutely. Absolutely. My friends are, we play Remoli, and I don't know if you know that card game. And then they swear at me and all the rest of it. Say, why did you throw that card down? And she'd say it with another word on the end. Yeah.
So if I could ask a question, so for Larry, Carrie, and Chris, if there was a message you could give to people who are living with dementia, what would that message be? What would you want to say? Because we do have some people in our audience this evening who are living with dementia. What would you want to say? Larry, I think you're going to speak first, it looks like.
I think the first thing about if somebody has a problem, don't laugh. You know, they do funny things, but the problem is if you laugh, you're hurting the person that doesn't know what's happening. So my mom was the first one to start telling us, if you laugh at somebody like that, you're going to end up the same way. So that kind of put a level playing field. So, you know, it kind of stopped teasing the person with Alzheimer's.
Perfect. Thanks, Larry. Carrie, what would you say?
Well, when I'm playing cards, and I'm not a good card player, but yes, one of my friends is a really good player, and she would swear and all this stuff. And I just ignore her. We just.
So I think being involved with your friends keeps up those friendships.
Yeah. Oh yeah, and I'm still doing volunteer work. Yeah.
So keep up also any of those other activities that you're usually doing, right? Volunteering. Chris, what about you? What would you say to someone living with dementia?
Keep active. Working out, I believe, has really, and walking my dogs has really kept my illness at bay. And I've been a long time very slow, which has made my family happy. And then the other thing is to try to stay positive. Sometimes I'm getting to the point now where I think maybe I shouldn't go out, I shouldn't go to the family outings, but you got to keep doing it. And once I get there, my family are all supportive and my friends are supportive. And now I have friends that you call, what is it now, friends that know about dementia. So I go out and they help me order my food, or if the restaurant's too noisy, they take me out. So instead of staying in the house, I go out. And I think that's very important.
Perfect. Thanks, Chris. And we have two care partners up here, Claude and Constance. Can I just ask you guys, what would you say to the care partners in the room on how, if you had to give your number one tip, what would you say to a care partner for helping keeping your family member here?
I would think the biggest thing is that is to take care of her. Life is going to change because it's a changing disease. Like Larry said, it doesn't get any better, but probably the biggest thing is you also have to take care of yourself, because you don't want the caregiver also in the hospital or have to be taken care of. So do take care of yourself. It's a tough job, be a caregiver. It's all of a sudden you have a lot of jobs or a lot of work that you didn't do, but your spouse or your mom or your brother did or your sister did, and now you have to do those. So it's very taxing. It's very it's exhausting also, but it's it's what life is. That's what for us. I think we've been good. It says I retired, so that's what I do now. That's my work. And it's okay.
And Constance, what would you say?
Some act to follow, right?
Really. I think you got to stay healthy, and that means, for me, I'm teaching myself how to nap. Like, I've never been able to fall asleep in front of the television, but say Larry's watching TV and his son, I'm learning to have my little naps, because fatigue is probably the biggest issue. The second one is, whatever your spiritual beliefs are, it's really good to, fall back on them. We're Buddhists, and Larry will often say to me when we're going to do something, let's chant Nam Myoho Renge Kyo. And so we'll chant like 3 times together. Well, wow, does that ever mean something to us? Your what you believe may be different. Use it to support you. And then the other thing is the exercise. I'm really lazy, but Larry is not. And we have a rec center membership. And the one great thing is that I can go in for free, because I always say I'm Larry's aide. And so there's a little tip for you guys. If you've got a rec center membership, don't pay that $8 when you go in. Just say you're that person's aide, and in you go. And we like to go and walk. And so Larry's kept me healthier than I would be, because he just loves to walk. And we go and walk around inside. And, we really appreciate everything the city of Edmonton has to offer. There's so many good things here. It's wonderful. So those are my tips. Thank you.
Okay, my wife would have dementia or Alzheimer's. She would never say that. She said, I'm just a little bit forgetful. If I ever use the word Alzheimer's, she would kill me. But she got, it took me a long time to figure out what was wrong with her. It took about a year to figure. And I said, don't the kids notice it? Can't you notice there's something wrong with mom? They never said anything, But my daughter, I found out later on, my daughter-in-laws noticed it, but they got a falling out from their husbands for saying that, even thinking of that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and so I says, well, so then we got a new, my wife got a new doctor. The old one retired. So I said, oh, she wants a new one, so I better go there too. Better switch too. Mine's getting old too. I had a different doctor, so I said, I'll have to go have a lady doctor, So I decided, well, okay. So, they first had a big anniversary, and I was listening very careful to see if anybody noticed anything wrong. Why they put the big anniversary, It's only 40, it's not 50. So nothing was said. Oh, shoot, still nothing. So I decided, well, I better switch doctors. So and she interviewed me. She said, I'll take you. One more question. He says, I think my wife's got Alzheimer's. I'm not sure. He says, first talk to your kids. Oh, my goodness. That was a hard question, you know. A hard time
Yeah, for
to
sure.
talk to my kids
For
about
sure,
it.
right? I went through that too.
And so I did. Yeah, then they said, yeah, they noticed it too.
Mm-hmm.
So then she had a test and she failed the test completely. I couldn't get over it, you know. All these simple things that she had to do. And then at the end, well, then I realized, hey, I have to smarten up. I started doing, she cut the food. I'd cook, you know. I had to learn how to cook and clean house because she'd do a wash, but you only do one thing at a time because you want, you know, one thing at a time, you know. I said, well, this is no good neither. Every day she'd put washing this, and then a couple hours later she'd be washing another thing, you know. But she had to get that routine, you know. You know, certain things she loved ironing and washing, you know.
And I think that's a good example of how to keep people still engaged, right? That she could still wash and still iron.
So I unplugged the wash machine for a while, you know.
Give it a break.
Yeah, so that she'd do all the wash at the same time, you know. And then later on, as she got really at the end, you know, I had to do everything, even dress her, shower, and all, you know. And but if I didn't put green clothes on her, she'd take it all off because she liked green. She was always a lady, you know. She wanted green clothes on. So finally, I went to the store and bought all new clothes, green. And the babe says, well, "Are you sure you don't want it?" No, it's got to be green. Otherwise, she won't wear it. Because if we're ready to go, then I should be standing with nothing on, you know.
And if I can just jump in, and again, for the other people sitting here, that's a great technique. If people want to wear something, let them wear it. Just because you think you shouldn't wear green every day, who cares? Right?
No. She wore green, and she liked green. And she doesn't remember my car, but there's one lady she didn't like, but she remembered her car.
Absolutely.
It was kind of funny.
Yeah.
And I do think those things happen. Does anybody else have any questions for any of our panel members?
Very young to me. Did you say you retired?
Well,
Are you still retired?
well, no, I wasn't forced. I gave my letter of retirement because our company asked for 3 months. And I gave my letter, and about a month later, that's when Carrie went on medical leave. So I was 58, and Carrie is 55 now, so she was 52 when this happened.
And I are in our 80s, so the difference is less, right?
Yeah.
Anyway, I find that I see a lot of young people. I almost feel good that this problem we have struck us late. However, I feel sorry that this young people.
Yeah, and it's a good point. So lots of people think of people with dementia as just being elderly, but worldwide we know that people are being diagnosed. The last number I heard, we've had someone in the city of Edmonton diagnosed at 40, but I've talked to someone that was 37 was one of the youngest diagnoses. So it does happen to younger people as well. But as we age, at the age of 65, 1 out of 11 people will have a dementia. And at the age of 85, it's 1 out of 2. Wow. So as we age, so the numbers of elderly people with it, or over 80 or 65, because to say elderly, I'll probably get kicked by some people. Over the age of, I knew I was standing too close. Over the age of 65, we know there's a larger number, but clearly the two ladies here were diagnosed in their 50s.
On a scale from 1 to 10, dementia and all that, how would you separate that?
Can't really do it because anybody who has Alzheimer's, that is a dementia. So,
Well, with all respect to claim that
Well, she was originally diagnosed with dementia. They didn't know what type of dementia. So there's there's quite a few different types of dementia. Alzheimer's is just one. So it took 8 months after that before she got diagnosed with Alzheimer's. They did an MRI, and all the MRI did is tell us what she didn't have. It didn't tell us what she had. It just told us what she didn't have. Because at first we thought, oh, we were told that Carrie had either Lewy body or frontal temple, and so which is totally different than Alzheimer's. They're the same in a lot of respects, but it's a little bit different. And to get diagnosed with Alzheimer's, as far as I'm concerned, dementia is not, to me, wasn't good enough because you can't. What do you do with just dementia? At least with Alzheimer's, they can do, like there's a strategy for Alzheimer's. There's a strategy for, let's say, Lewy body dementia. There's a strategy for all the different types. And to get labeled with one, it doesn't, for me anyways, it doesn't matter. I tell anybody that, that wants to know what Carrie has, and I'm not ashamed to say it. She has a disease. If she had cancer, nobody would say anything differently, or everybody would say, "Oh, so you have cancer. What are you doing about it?" But when you say you have Alzheimer's or dementia, they kind of back away from you.
Which is kind of why we wanted you guys to come today to say, this is what I am doing about it and how I'm continuing to live.
And my friends are just fabulous. Like people, there's a lot of people who don't get out and don't socialize, and they're at home watching TV, which is no good at all. And it's just we had that sociology girl from India that was here.
Yeah.
And she was saying music is really, really powerful, and doing like Sudoku and just things like that. Yeah, the word search. I do the word search.
Yeah.
After I read the obituary.
Can you pass this one on to Carrie? There's one for you guys. And that's the end.
Yeah,
And then this is one for you guys.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to. Thank you very, very much.
I was there always, but apparently it's 100.
Yep, Dr. Alzheimer discovered it.
This article dealt with the doctor who deals with this illness, and the experiment that's in Mayo Clinic related. And they have diagnosed and says that what causes this, call it amyloid plaques. And another one is tau, T-A-U. And they're experimenting with a drug called LM11-A-31, which has removed these plaques in mice. They claim if they could only apply it to humans, then they would be way ahead of the game, okay? But this is in the United States, of course. And I'm sure you know, when they experiment with these drugs, it needs approval by the government. So,
Yes.
So the medication that they've come up with so far in the States, only one has been approved out of 5, I believe. Anyway, I just thought I would bring this to your attention about this experiment, and this plaque that they refer to is
Amyloid.
that apparently affects with this illness.
Yeah, we know that part of the thing how Dr. Alzheimer discovered it is he found amyloid plaque and tau protein, TAU, in a woman's brain that he was looking at. And so we still say that. If you take our What is Alzheimer's brochure, it will talk about amyloid proteins and the tau protein in there. So we do know that's what causes it. So that article was talking about one scientific research. There is scientific research being done all over the world looking for that. And I had the chance to go to an international conference, and they actually said that, yes, in mice, we can get rid of the amyloid, but the mouse still has dementia, and that we can also have mice who have dementia, or who don't appear to have dementia, but they actually have amyloid plaques. So they're not sure. So the end point about research is that there's still a long ways to go, and there is research being done. Yeah, so the question is, does medication help slow it down? Medically speaking, they will say it treats the symptoms. It doesn't actually slow the disease. It looks like it is because people might have a bit of memory. Their short-term memory might be a little bit better for a little bit, but in the long run, it's actually not slowing the disease. It's treating the symptom, if that makes sense. I always use the example, if I typed with my shoulders hunched up at my ears and I started getting headaches, if I took Advil to get rid of my headache, but I continue to type like this, have I treated my disease? No, right? So until I learn to type with the right posture, that would be actually treating the disease. All I do by taking an Advil is I treat my symptom, which is the headache. Yeah, the three medications that are approved in Alberta, that's what they do, is they treat the symptoms. But again, we are looking for that. So you guys, I would like to wrap this evening up if we could. So I would like to thank everyone for coming. I do want everyone to know, please feel free to come and chat with any of our speakers one-on-one. And I do know Larry and Constance has brought some books.
Like if anybody is interested in purchasing a book, the Residential School History is also available at Audrey's books. We have three books here that are, we're donating. So if you'd like to have a book of writings of learners, you can please take one.
Perfect. So once again, if we could just thank Constance, Larry, Carrie, Claude, and Chris for this evening, that would be great. Good. Thanks, everyone. And sorry about our technology. That's why we did it so close. So.
If you want some new trails, I know every trail in Edmonton.
Really? We don't know any trails in Edmonton. And